Hi guys, welcome back to the Mr. Beast video. Today we're going to be seeing how many days I can survive in Minecraft. Oh hey, what's up? Today I'm making a movie review, and this, in history, will be the first collection room video to cover a movie. I know, glad to have the title. Anyway, we're going to talk about the Dark Crystal today.
The Dark Crystal. It begins as a quest.
You must find the shard. The crystal shard.
Now, the Dark Crystal is pretty underrated in my opinion. It's got lots of good things and a good number of bad things too that make it a little interesting, but you know, it's really good, and I'm going to tell you why. A little history about the movie. Released in 1982, directed by Frank Oz and Jim Henson. Yes, that Jim Henson, little Muppets guy. And yeah, so basically this is like, what if the Muppets was cool, edgy, and dark? So I guess let's talk about the story, which I don't really want to cover like a basic plot, like barf detail on you. You can go look that up on Google or watch some other video to get a better idea of that. But you know, basically the plot is there's one species split into two, and you got the Skeksis, which are these like lizard dudes, and then you got the Mystics, which are just like the nice lizard dudes. And they were separated thousands of years ago, and there's a prophecy. I know, I want to barf in my mouth hearing another prophecy. But there's a prophecy that this little elf creature dude named Jen would reunite the two species back together by using this giant crystal, and there's a little shard of it that came off, and he has to find the shard and put it back in, and that's basically the plot. The plot is fairly simple. I mean, good guys got to get the MacGuffin to solve the thing, but that's kind of what's really wrong with the plot, is that it's fairly basic and kind of hollow. I mean, you got this protagonist, Jen. He's basically just this like humanoid creature, and he's not very interesting. None of the characters are really all that interesting. He's just a really boring protagonist, but I mean, he does what he needs to do for the plot to move forward, and that's basically it. There's nothing really interesting about him as a person, other than his journey he has to go through, and his prophecy. Yeah, just the idea of a prophecy is kind of annoying. It's pretty overused as a trope. I mean, when it's done right, it's still pretty good, but the fact that it's just like, I mean, I guess I can't get mad at it because it's such a really old movie, but I don't know, I'm pretty tired of prophecies, and I think most people could agree with that. Basically, Jen, the elf dude, has to get this little crystal fragment from an old lady, and then he has to walk all his way back over to the palace of the Skeksis, and he has to put it in there. He has to slam dunk it in there. Just the characters and story just really boils down to how can we show more of the world, which is honestly the best part about this movie and really why I want to talk about it. Basically, the characters only exist just for the story to move forward and to show most of the world that Jim Henson made, which, you know, is the best part of the movie, and we'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, it feels like the story kind of takes a backseat for most of the movie just because of how uninteresting that the characters are, but you know, that's not really why I like the movie. Now, the real meat and potatoes of this movie is the world. Oh my gosh. The visuals of this movie are like light years ahead of its time, man. It's crazy. The special effects are insane in this. The puppets themselves and like are just so well detailed. It's amazing how detailed they're able to get that. There's not a single human in this movie, and I feel like that's like the coolest part about it, because like you had something like Star Wars where there's humans everywhere, and like, yeah, there's some puppets like Yoda and stuff, but it doesn't feel as much like a human world, like a crazy fantasy world, because like, oh, there's just people just like us out there. But no, like there's no humans in this movie, except for like when there's like a wide shot and they need a character to run across the screen. Then it's a human, but you don't see their faces. There's no human actors playing like a major role in the movie, and I think that's awesome. Just the way they created some of the characters and how they move and the way they look, and it's just so interesting and like fascinating how they did it. And you know, on screen they look pretty convincing. I mean, obviously you can tell that they're puppets because, you know, most of the time you don't see their feet, but I mean, they still make it feel like a real world. I think it's way better when they do a set, like when they have a set that, like the Skeksis Palace, they made that from scratch. So it really does look like a fantasy type place that like the bad guys would live in, and it's like so detailed and rich. The landscape shots, which you can just tell they found like a valley somewhere on, like, obviously, like, you know, it's gonna be shot on Earth, but like they really didn't do a fantastic job. I mean, it's fine, but the parts where you can tell that it's like, oh, that's just some valley that they shot in. But the matte paintings though really do help cover that up most of the time. Like you've got, like, a matte painting is basically like a background, but it's painted, and it covers the entire like shot, and that makes it feel a little more alive and different. Like how I think there was like a shot with like multiple moons, or like a different looking moon, but yeah, I think that looks with the matte paintings makes it look a lot more convincing that it's like an alien planet. But the visuals are just like the number one thing this movie does well, and yeah, it gets praised for it, but like nobody seems to really want to talk about this movie, but I think just that alone propels it up to some like amazing like I really like this movie because of that. It feels like a real world that it like came from the head of like a really creative person. The movie is just super creative in its visuals, and I think it really carries the whole movie because the story ain't carrying nothing. It's pretty bland, but I still recommend that you watch it just because of how good it looks. And like it succeeds in making like a really grand plot. Like it feels epic, and one of the reasons why it's so epic is because of the score. Oh my god, the score is awesome in this movie. It is crazy how like just powerful it is. It just hits you. Like the main theme itself is crazy. It goes dun, 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 dun. Like it's almost on the level of like Star Wars level impactful. Like it's really great at making it feel like an adventure, and not exactly. I mean, one thing that the movie kind of does lack, it's mostly fantasy, little to no action. I think there's maybe two action scenes, and they're not really like. I mean, that's not the focus of the movie, but the action scenes are a little bland, but they do make up for it with just like how impressive everything is and everything looks in the world. The movie didn't really do very well in the box office. It kind of just meandered critically and financially, but you know, that's a real shame because I think this movie's really cool. I guess the audience back at the time wasn't really needing it. I mean, it was like around the time of Star Wars, so I guess like the fantasy adventure type wasn't really super in need or anything. Like the way they have those guys on like the stilts and like the people inside of them, and they had to ride them, and just like the way that they had to make a move is just so fascinating and interesting. The way that they created them, and like every creature in the movie feels real, and you know, it just makes it feel like a bigger, broader world than just like a small little Muppet show. The way that they even made like the grass and like the plants and the vegetation feel all like distinct and alien-like, and it's like it just oozes creativity. I don't even know how they do some of like the special effects like with them, and like the fact that it's all done practically, and I mean, this is before CGI. All they had was matte paintings, blue screens, and and like just practical effects and makeup. That's all that they could do. They didn't have anything else that they could use. Like no technology was great enough to do. Like there's a few like added in post effects, but nothing like that we have today. A little fun fact is that they had a test screening for this movie, but and they had it all in a unique language, like the alien language that sometimes like the female protagonist speaks in the movie, but it was like all in this like language that obviously wasn't English, and then like the people in the audience the test screening audience were not liking that at all. So like there was just no English dialogue throughout the movie, just subtitles. But you know, that might be difficult for people. People don't like to read. It does make sense why they changed it to English, but I think that was interesting. Probably would have made for a more interesting world overall if they didn't speak English, but you know, what are you gonna do about it now? I would definitely recommend giving it a watch because it's super cool. You can watch it for free on YouTube. It's probably on Netflix or something. Alright, see you guys.
The crystal shard? To save our world, you please.
A wonder-filled fantasy adventure.
Yo, Cooper, what do you think of this movie? What do you think of it? I'll take that as a yes.